Hello and welcome to Legislative Report. I'm State Representative Gary Day of the 187th District in Berks and Lehigh counties. Each year the legislature has the challenge and the responsibility to pass a spending plan for Pennsylvania. The starting point in the House is the Appropriations Committee, which considers the funding requests and needs of every department in state government. The governor issues his budget, and then we review it in the House to see, what we did last year and make the legislature's changes if we have any. Joining me today is chairman of that committee, Representative Bill Adolph. Representative Adolph is here to discuss the budget process and the specific issues that will affect this year's plan. Representative Adolph, welcome to the program.
Nice to be here, Gar.
Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for being here. I also want to thank you for allowing me to be on the committee. I'm extremely proud to be on the House Appropriations Committee. Not as proud during our 3 weeks, 4 days that we go pillar to post out here, early morning through the afternoon, and we have full days where we examine this budget. It's such a large budget, though. I know when I was going to be appointed to this committee, you made sure I was aware of the time commitment that is required. And we talked about that, and you were very open and honest, and I appreciate that. You've also helped and guided me through this process of how to deal with this rush of information, but really there's no better way to learn the budget. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience in learning the budget by being on appropriations or the chairman of?
Well, I spent 6 years as a rank and file member on the committee, which I thought was the best years of my legislative career up here being on that committee. Every aspect of state government, you are able to investigate and get your hands on it. The budget process, Garrett, as you know, starts with the governor calling a joint session of both the Senate and the House, and he presents his thoughts, his blueprint, his proposal of the amount of revenue that we're going to bring in and how he would like to spend it. As you know, it's just a proposal, and a lot of things go in, a lot of things happen between February and June 30th. And one of those things is the marathon that you're talking about, which is the House Appropriations Committee hearings. And we have every department head, not too much different than what your township supervisors do, or city council does, or county council does on a yearly basis. We bring all the department heads, the secretaries, the cabinets. We bring in the state Supreme Court. We bring in university presidents, and they make a request to us of what they think they need financially to run their department. We have a open dialogue, and we can ask them questions specifically budget related, why they need it, how many employees, how many positions have you filled, how many positions do you have vacant. Sometimes we get into a lot of policy. Why is this costing this much, and so forth. The Senate does the same thing as we do. Of course, our committee, we have 35 members. And if one member asks one question, that's 35 questions per testifier. And, Gary, you've been a tremendous asset to the committee. You bring the Lehigh Valley's perspective into it, which is always needed, and that's why we have you there. So, and then after the committee hearings are over, we then meet with the Senate, and we get their input, what their priorities are. But almost on a daily basis, we have a budget analyst who is looking at the revenue to see if it's coming in. And each, whether it be cigarette sales, or whether it be PIT, or whether it be sales tax, corporate net income tax, we are watching that. because, as you know, we just experienced the Great Depression, and we had to make a lot of tough decisions these last couple of years because we went into the hole as far as our revenue was concerned. We lost $2 billion in federal stimulus money, which is like 12% of our revenue. So we really had to dig out of this slow economy, and we still are. We
Right.
still are.
And I want to, for people who don't understand the process, I just want to go over it again. We recently had Governor Rendell, and now we have Governor Corbett, and really, some people like one or the other, better depending on their viewpoint.
Yes.
But they're really faced with the same problem: is that they must launch out a proposal, and they must in February, very early in the process. So they have to almost lead with their chin. We on the committee get a little bit longer, a month or two, before we do the hearings, and then even longer to work on passing the budget. So it's important to know when you hear the governor has proposed this in his budget, that it is a blueprint. I'm glad you shared that with everyone. The second thing I think about is, since you became the majority chairman, we've changed a little bit of the budgeting process, and to me, it's something that many of the viewers at home take for granted, and that's being on time with the budget. And I want to talk about that a little bit and see your perspective, because I share my perspective with my viewers here, but I want you to share your perspective. An on-time budget, what does that mean to the counties and municipalities and school districts, subdivisions of the Commonwealth, all out in our communities where people actually see and feel budgetary issues? What does that mean? Why is that so important to representative like myself and you?
Well, we have a constitutional requirement to pass an on-time, balanced budget, which doesn't sound like it's a unique idea, but unlike the federal government, we have to have a balanced budget. For every dollar that we're going to spend, we need a dollar in revenue, and it's a great idea. Okay. And I think what the Corbett administration did is, and with your help, we have slowed down the spending, and we had to. The previous administration was spending double the cost of living, Well, we now have it, tied in with the cost of living, just like our small businesses have to do, just like our families have to do. So if you don't pass a budget on time, your school districts, they don't receive money from Harrisburg. Your state universities, okay, they don't receive money from Harrisburg. Those agencies, rape crisis centers, those important agencies that rely on state funding, they don't get their money. And FIA grants, money for kids to go to school, they don't receive the grants. So state government stops spending money, and that's a problem. Obviously, we do spend money for the essential, state police and so forth and so on. But many of the others do not receive the money, and we were here one time until December without passing a budget. And that was the one thing that caused that was Governor Rendell's insistence that he wanted a certain piece of legislation passed before he would agree to a budget.
Right.
And when you tie in certain legislation and you leverage the budget with it, it's a bad idea.
Right.
And I warn everybody about that. And I get kidded from the other side of the aisle all the time. Oh, you made it by 5 minutes. Well, that's not what we're really talking about.
Right.
But if you get there at 11:55 on June 30th, you have an on-time budget. But I don't know how many times I said that over the last 2 years that I'm actually proud of that, because it's the most important vote that a state legislator or a state senator makes is the budget vote, because all your priorities depend on that budget being passed.
Now, one of the things I thought was has changed since you took over as being majority chairman was there's obviously two camps out here in Harrisburg. One camp looks at it like, what do we want to spend, and let's go find the money. Let's raise taxes or move money around. And then there's the other side, which is what I think you brought to the committee. How much do we have? Let's get very good on revenue estimates, how much money is coming in, and then let's prioritize spending. And I think I talk about it all the time, whether it's your district or my district. That's what we're representing out here in Harrisburg. And it's tough. I think it's easy to say let's spend on everything. I think it's easy to say let's spend on nothing. But I think doing the homework that we do in the Appropriations Committee, going through and figuring out what is the most appropriate to spend the dollars we have. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Again, may seem like a small change, but I think is a big change.
Well, it's not much different than being a parent.
Right.
I had 3 sons, and they asked for a lot, but you can only give them what you have. And and that's the way I was raised. That's the way I operated my business. That's the way I believe government should be responsible. And I'm always looking for ways to create new revenue without taxing the general public. And you do that by making Pennsylvania be a better place to work, better place to live, and a better place to bring a business. And I think if you keep that in mind, I think things will fall into place.
Let's talk a little bit about the breakdown of revenues in this state.
Sure.
Now, it's something you spend a lot of time on the committee. Now you're the chairman leading the committee. Tell us a little bit about the various types of revenue sources that bring in dollars.
And I think this says it all. I mean, this breakdown really says it all, because 40% of our revenue comes from the PIT, right? That's your next door neighbor's paycheck.
Right. The personal income tax.
Personal income tax. PIT. 3.07 of their gross wages. 40% of the state revenue. So when we have Pennsylvanians working, that helps our state budget, which comes back to them in public safety and public education, so forth and so on. The next item is sales tax. It's 32%, of our state revenue. That's when we go out, we buy some sporting goods equipment, we take our family out to eat. 6% of what we're spending. And that particular one, Gary, and if you don't mind me just saying, that particular revenue source right now is really under scrutiny right now, has us very concerned, because that is not coming in at the rate that we thought it was. And why a lot of people feel that, if you remember, Congress passed that 2% Social Security increase. They brought it back to where it was 2 years ago. And something as simple as that, how could that be? Well, it's 2% of everybody's income.
Right.
Okay? So, and normally when you go out to eat, it's the extra money and so forth when you're buying appliances and stuff for your house. But that sales tax is definitely sluggish, which tells me something about the economy in the whole.
So you talked a little bit about the revenue coming in, the personal income tax, which is on production, and then the sales tax, which is on consumption.
Yes.
It's something that's interesting to me, but we don't load it all on one side or the other. I'm going to pause for a moment here and take a quick break, but when we return, we'll talk a little bit about the other side, the spending side. And thanks for stick with us here through the break, and Legislative Report will return in a moment.
Did you know that Fort Indian Town Gap, located in Lebanon County, is home to Pennsylvania's only Veterans Memorial? C.J. Frederick of Westchester, Bucks County, submitted the winning design that now honors those men and women who have sacrificed their lives in defending this great country. Dedicated to the Commonwealth on October 7, 2001, the Veterans Memorial is surrounded by freestanding walls and houses an amphitheater, which can accommodate large crowds during an event. Strategically placed in the front of the amphitheater is a tomb that reminds visitors of those who gave their lives protecting the freedoms of this nation. The design suggests a war-damaged structure in which Frederick wanted to impress upon those visiting the horrific arena of war. Now you know.
Welcome back to the program. I'm State Representative Gary Day. My guest today is Representative Bill Adolph, Chairman of the House Appropriations Committee. Our topic today is the state budget, the process we use to go through from when the governor introduces his budget all the way through our examination in the House Appropriations Committee, and also it goes over to the Senate for the same examination. We talked a little bit before the break about revenue, the dollars that come in, the personal income tax, the sales tax. There's other revenues that come in as well, but that's the large part of the revenues. Now what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask you your position. You know, when I'm out walking through the district or at different events, people come up to me and ask, so I get a chance to share with them my view. What I'm bringing to the viewers today is the chairman's view, and maybe show that it's a little different between representatives and the districts we represent. So could you tell us a little bit about how the money is spent? What are the areas that receive the most funding? And we have a chart we may put up about expenditures, but go ahead and tell them a little bit about how the money is spent.
Sure. Well, if you put all education spending together, that's our largest line item. When you combine about 35% for K through 12 and about 6% for higher ed, that's 41% of our money goes towards education. So the Commonwealth has a tremendous commitment to education. The way the money's broken up, that's always debated, and it usually ends up in court, and obviously it's not divided by 500 school districts. It's based upon ADMs, which is like enrollment, and also based upon the per capita of the districts, and obviously the poorer school districts get more per student than wealthier districts. So that's always a debate, and so forth and so on. But that's 41% of our state budget. The next one is the Department of Welfare, okay? And that's just under 40%, just under 40%. And that department is, for medical assistance, for our hospitals, for our nursing home, and so forth. A lot of federal mandates come into play. Then we save a little bit money for our roads and everything else. You know, our state police and or DEP and so forth. But those two big items, that's almost 80% of our budget.
And I like to share with people that corrections is a small number when you're talking about those numbers. But when you break the pie out, I always look at corrections to be 7 or 8% of the budget as well. That's the judiciary, that's the folks who can't play by the rules, and we have a corrections system, hopefully a rehabilitative system, but that's a big part of the budget as well.
You know, it really is, and you know, I think when the secretary was before our committee, you know, we were able to talk a little policy there. And I remember it was just a few years ago where we actually had more prisoners than we had cells here in Pennsylvania. Right. And we were shipping Pennsylvania residents to Michigan and Virginia and so forth. Well, I'm glad to say that is no longer the case, and that we now have a better system as a result of some of the laws that we passed, and the rehabbing of these prisoners starting to seem to work a lot better.
Right. Now, let's shift a little bit about and get to some of the topics that are hot issues this year. It seems like our governor is being, I think in his first 2 years, people said, you have to do more. You have to be out in front more. Well, boy, did he ever do that in the last couple months.
Yeah.
He came out and he made a proposal, and it was kicking around the House. One of our leaders had a bill, and the governor came out and said about liquor privatization. We have a state store system that I grew up under. You did as well. I'll be honest with you. I share with a lot of my viewers that I was comfortable under that system. But when you start to look at other states, how they do business, and you start to think about what are the core functions of government? Our Constitution says education. We think of transportation. We'll get to that in a minute. But to privatize the liquor stores means to take an asset, and I actually had Chairman John Taylor. I talked to him a lot during this process. And we shared the differences in my district and his, and what he crafted was a good way to get there. But let's talk about the finances. When two political sides get going at each other, sometimes the numbers and the facts start to change.
Sure.
Can you share with the viewers your idea of what are the facts, what are the numbers? And one in particular I need you to address. How many dollars come in now under the system?
Okay.
And how many would come in under a private system?
Okay. Well, it's very easy as far as the actual money coming in now. It's made up of two areas. Okay. We get about $500 million a year from the state system. $400 million of the 500 comes from taxes. All right. And we have 600 wine and spirit stores. Okay, I'm getting used to that instead of calling them state stores.
Right.
Okay, wine and spirit stores. And as a result of at the retail level, we're getting $400 million in taxes. Now, we get another $100 million, and that's profit. That's profit from these 600 wine and spirit stores. So we get $500 million. Now, why do I think it's going to be better under a privatization? Well, number one, I think the revenue is going to improve as a result of competition. And you always hear the argument, well, the wine and beer, we're still going to have the same taxes. That's correct. But under private ownership, you're going to have better store hours. You're going to be more convenient. And I think that's going to generate more revenue. Plus, a key component, if you believe in the free market system, is competition. All right, so Gary may own a wine and spirit store on this busy street. All right, somebody else may open up down the street a mile. Competition will lower the prices. Okay, which will generate more liquor, wine sold. Plus the proposal, which I was very proud to be part of that historic vote, because not since Prohibition have we ever voted to eliminate those wine and spirit stores. But there's going to be 1,200 of them. Okay, so you're doubling the amount of wine and spirit stores. It's a phase-in over a 3 or 4 year period, but you're going to have 1,200. And I know, there's diversity in your district from, suburban to more rural area. And, but you're going to see in the more populated areas more than just one wine and spirit store
right.
in a municipality of, say, 70,000 people.
So when people are out there saying this system, current system, brings in 500 million, you're saying 400 of that was taxes, which means
taxes.
If everything's equal, which it's hard to project, you're projecting and saying, I think it's going to increase sales, and I think prices might be lower. But either way, if it's equal amount of sales, that 400 million will still come in. And the system we transition into this with will generate license fees and make up some of those dollars, I think.
Gary, I'm from Delaware County, okay? And I live literally minutes away from the Delaware state border. And everyone knows that wine and spirits are cheaper in the state of Delaware, and you get a better selection. Wine drinkers seem to really enjoy going out and shopping, okay, for a good bottle of wine. You know, I'm not one, but I don't spend any time shopping for anything. You know, I know what I want, I go in there and I buy it. But there are friends of mine that really enjoy going down I-95, which is only 15 minutes, and they go into this supermarket style wine and spirit store. And they spend an hour in there shopping, and they come out with more than one bottle. So they call it border bleed, as we heard from the LCB when they were in front of us.
Right.
So, you know, we have New Jersey down our way. New Jersey's not too far from the Lehigh Valley. You know, it's the package store mentality that it's just convenient. It's your neighbor owning them, not a state-run operation.
I'm going to give, we're running out of time. We're running toward the end of the program,
Yes.
and I have a chance to ask you one quick question because I really wanted to get it in this program. I wanted to make sure that the viewers had a chance to hear your thoughts about roads and bridges. And the governor has a proposal. I've got about a minute left for you to answer. The governor is proposing uncapping the oil gas franchise tax. Can you explain quickly what that is and what that means to Pennsylvanians?
Okay. It's a tax on the petroleum companies at the wholesale level. And the governor's first proposal was to uncap it in 1 year. Okay. And I think talking to many legislators like yourself, too much, too fast, okay, and they came out with a second proposal over a 4 or 5 year period. The Secretary of Transportation will tell you there's no guarantee that the price of gas will go up. Well, I think the early prediction is that over a 4 or 5 year period, it may go up 5 to 7 cents a gallon, because it's a regional type gas increase, and it's going to raise some money. It's going to raise some money, but you know, public safety, Gary, is so important, and we need to stay on top of this. And I really believe if you justify spending to your constituency, listen, they rely on these roads to go to work,
Right.
you know, and our kids take the school buses to school, and we want our roads to be safe, and we don't want to be wasting our time sitting in traffic,
Right.
or ruining our cars.
Well, and I appreciate that explanation, and it helps to understand that a direct gas tax would definitely show up at the pump. This may or may not. It's hard to. It should be a less of an impact to the
Yes.
consumer than the direct gas tax. So it's good that if we're looking at one or the other, that we're looking at this one, I think. And I really appreciate your time today and getting all these topics in on my program for our viewers at home to understand a little bit more than just from me, how things work out here in Harrisburg. And that's all the time we have for today's program. I'm State Representative Gary Day. If you need assistance with any state government matter, feel free to contact me at my local office. The address and number will be shown in a moment. Thanks for watching, and please remember, contact me. It makes me a better state representative, and let me know your concerns and your thoughts about today's program. Please join me next time for Legislative Report.